Well, hello to our distinguished audience all across the nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the rest of the region and the world. Welcome back to our podcast. My name is Junior Cottle, and today I have again with me Pastor Cecil Richards. Pastor, how are you doing?
I'm geared up for this, and I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to speak to our fellow Vincentians, and not just Christians, but everyone who wants to know what the Evangelical Association is about and what we're doing, and to hear our voice weighing in. So I'm looking forward to this.
Right.
Is our second podcast, and we hope that we have some new ones on who are not there with our first podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the last time you were here, you kind of made a promise. You teed up something that I'm sure our audience is ready and waiting and poised to hear about concerning the topic of justice.
Yeah, justice. You know, Peter, you're too young to know Peter Tosh.
Peter Tosh? Yes, I know Peter Tosh, man.
Oh, I wonder if you have young people watching this podcast. Young people, they probably know Beanie Man. And Ziggy Marley. They know Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh back in the days is everybody's crying out for peace. None of this crying out for justice. All I want is equal rights and justice. And then they go, I bet you know the part down person man. Where you gonna run to? Down pressure man. Hey!
Down pressure man. Where you gonna run to?
Yeah. Justice is a hot topic, and you think that Christians all we want to talk about is forgiveness and repentance, baptism, getting saved, getting discipled.
Mm-hmm.
Do we ever care about justice for the downtrodden? And I know a lot of people, when you hear the church is speaking, you want to know. Sometimes you even want to, if we come with a message of repentance, you don't want to hear. If we come with a message of get baptized and come to, you don't want to hear. But if you hear the church crying out for justice, you might listen. So that's where we are. That's how I teed it up the last time.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because oftentimes when people think about, church, they think about, they're going to tell me about sin. They're going to tell me about, the pastor might be talking about money.
Oh, yeah.
But oftentimes, a lot of people, especially in our context, are affected and dejected for a lack of avoidance of justice. And we see it in the newspaper, we hear it across the airwaves about persons who are losing loved ones because of crime, persons who are affected by poverty, persons who are affected by different ills across our society. And of course,
it's rare.
At the beginning, the question, everybody's crying out for justice. So, Pastor Richards.
Yes, sir.
We're poised to hear.
Well, yeah.
You said you've been preaching through Luke.
I've been preaching through Luke, yes.
And this theme of justice
comes up
again
and again and again.
Right, give us a context for
this one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm at Luke in chapter 18. Right? So, you know what I mean? It's not going to be a Bible study, right? And it's not going to be preaching.
Right.
Well, I wish this was a live, boy. If this was a live, all kind of questions coming in. And it'd be easy.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be easy if it were live, so I don't just say what I want to say, that I'll be answering the
But on that note, because you guys are viewing this on various platforms, so YouTube, Facebook, our website, etc., you can still send in your questions, and because Pastor Richards is on the AEC team, we'll still get to answer your questions. So,
yes, sir. Come on.
So that's a
good one,
right?
I want to answer your question because I bet you have questions. I bet you have comments that you like. You know what I mean? And when you engage people and you respect them to, even if it's a question that you're like, boy, that's an uncomfortable question.
Right.
Even when you respect them to take their question and don't run from it, they go like, I like that. I don't want to follow this. I want to follow this. Yeah. So the context for this, I mean, like I said, it's not Bible study, it's not preaching. Yeah. But Jesus himself tells this story. So I'm like, if Jesus tells this story, I'm like, I want to hear what he's talking about in this story. So in Luke 18 and verse 2, he talks about, and you don't have to pull up your Bible, I tell you. He talks about a city where there was a judge, all right? So he sets it up. Right away, you're into the immediately justice, right? And then there was a woman in verse 3, a widow, right? And she kept coming to this guy, and she kept saying, give me justice. So she's crying out for justice, you know? Right. Yeah, like Peter Tosh, right there.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
Because like even a few months ago, like there were some persons, there was a case. I can't remember exactly what the case was, and I think the person had done a short term in the prison for either committing murder or some other crime. And one of the parents of the person that lost the loved one, of the parents of the victim, one of their cry was, "Give me justice." So I'm wondering now, what this widow is on about justice about.
Well, we are so totally unscripted here. You know that there's a wide field of justice.
Right. Wow.
For example, what you're talking about there is what we call retributive justice, right? The justice system that we have here at Evangelical is basically around retributive justice. You did this, you contravened the law, you're going to pay, you're going to enter into the penal system. There's going to be some retribution and recompense for what you did wrong. All right? So you stole my sheep and you thief.
Yeah.
You thief the sheep and you get caught, or we say you get catch.
Yeah, catch.
Right? You're going to have to pay. Right? So you have the justice system.
Right.
And that's one aspect of justice. But the thing that Jesus was really concerned about was not even so much, I'm not saying he wasn't concerned about retributive justice, but he was concerned about equal rights, fairness. And equity.
Right.
So that's why the Bible talks about even in economic justice, right? There's selling with your scales have to be right. You don't cheat there. Environmental justice, how you deal with the environment. There are a lot of justice that be related to gender equity and all of that. Parity in pay. Parity in pay would be, are you paying some people more than others and all of that? So
I'm sure there's somebody, shouted out there, yes, equity and pay.
You got an unfair dismissal, right? That can't be covered by the retributive justice system. Nobody's going to jail for that. But there are some matters within the sphere and ambit of civil justice that if somebody got an unfair dismissal or you're a domestic worker, I'm going to come to all of this. And you're working from sun up till sundown for $60. I don't know. $60.
Well, I think it just changed to $60. I think minimum wage in probably most careers. Yeah.
So we want to talk about economic justice, all kind of justice. We go scratch where it is itching using this thing. A lot of people are come, give me more. Let's talk about justice, right? So back to this woman.
Right.
So she's in this city, and I don't know if it's a matter of economic justice. I don't know if it's a matter of retributive justice. I don't know if it's a matter of restorative.
So the text doesn't say.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a reason why I think Jesus leaves the whole thing vague so that it could cover a wide span of justice situation.
Wow.
I don't know.
I've never thought of it that way.
I'm telling you, that's let's say that's deep. That's when you dig deep. That's when you dig deep. You dig deep in the pot with expository preaching. You start noticing that there are times when Jesus is very specific and detailed for a purpose, and you would notice that at other times he is vague and he leaves it so that
he paints with a broad brush.
Yeah. So he just says a woman, and he just says a judge, and he just says that the woman crying out for justice, But I get the sense that it is not so much retributive justice that somebody is going to jail, but I get the sense that it is somebody not treating her fairly, and she wants someone of an authority to adjudicate.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but I mean, she just wants somebody. I think this is probably resonated with somebody out there. You didn't get treated fairly at work. You didn't get treated fairly at the school. You didn't get treated fairly by the system, and you feel powerless. Powerless. And you want somebody to make a ruling on your case. So that's the whole setup. So if you follow in the book of Luke, if you follow in the book of Luke, remember I'm preaching or teaching the thing, right? So you're following. So Jesus says, well, the woman is crying out for justice. But apparently, you get into verse 4, and this thing has been going on for a long time, but he doesn't say long. I bet you that there are some people in our Vincent society, you've been crying out for justice for months. You're being owed money. And who is supposed to pay you ain't paying you. I just heard this morning about a case from 10 years ago where a ruling was made for over $100,000 to a young man.
Wow.
And up to this day, he hasn't seen one, I was about to say one red cent. But
one penny.
He hasn't seen 1 cent. We don't do cents. He hasn't seen 5 cents. You understand? So Jesus just says for a while. So I wonder somebody out there listening, stay with me, right?
Yeah.
I wonder somebody out there listening how long you'll be crying out for justice. And if this speaks to you. So get to the end of the story real quick so that you can chat back with me.
Yeah.
So in this town now there's a judge and there's a widow and there's a cause. Right. Those are the 3 things so far. And then there's a time span. It's going on for a while. And there's an outcome.
Right. So a judge, a widow,
a woman,
a cause,
a
time span,
and
an outcome.
Boy.
I listen. Just like everybody out there, I'm listening.
So there's all of that. So here's what happened now, right? So stay with me, right? Because there's somebody out there, this might bring you hope. And Jesus deliberately tells this story. By the way, he's telling this story when he's going to die.
Yeah.
He is headed up, and you get all of that from the expository preaching.
Right.
He is actually on his way to Jerusalem. By the time you get to Luke 19 and Luke 20, he is getting ready to go into Jerusalem. So you know he's going to die. And he stops to talk about justice. It's got to be important. So let us see the outcome. So the woman cried out for a while, but the guy who was supposed to deliver justice, he did not deliver justice until the woman, and she won't give up. And there's another story that will come to that. So she just won't give up, and the man thought, about this woman will just drive me nuts. She's not going to stop. A lot of times, people want you to be quiet. If you try one time to get justice and you back them down, they figure you'll be quiet. You cry out 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, they figure you will shut up. But this woman ain't shut up. So he decided, boy, for my peace of mind, this woman ain't going to shut up. I have to do right. So he does right by her, and then so that's the story. So you can now use a story to unpack it, to find a number of things that are relatable as you dig into the pot, and to get what God says in His Word. You can unpack it to get a number of things that are relatable to our Vincentian society.
So that's really, really helpful. But even before you move on to some of the unpacking, one of the things I hear coming out from what you've just said, and it emanates pretty clearly, is that Jesus is concerned about the downtrodden.
Yeah, he is. And that is something that we see early in his ministry.
Right.
I mean, from the very capstone of his ministry. And maybe in a later podcast, I will dig into Jesus's concern for justice.
Right.
But when he just started his ministry, I'm talking about just got baptized as an adult, and about to start his ministry in the book of Luke in chapter 4. And he's being introduced to the public. He goes to the synagogue, and of all of the things that he could find to say, he could say, I have come to die. I have come to be a substitutionary, the substitutionary death.
Right.
I have come to seek and to save
That which is lost.
who's lost. He could have said all of those things. I have come to give my life a ransom for many.
Right.
And all of these big time things of salvation and soteriology and all of that.
Right.
Jesus didn't say that. Jesus said in his very first opening to the public, he said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and I am anointed to bring the gospel to the poor. I am anointed. The poor. He highlights that. He highlights, I am anointed to give sight to the blind. I am anointed to give freedom to the prisoners.
Right.
So you have the poor, you have the blind, you have prisoners.
Yeah.
He says, I'm here to bring relief to the oppressed and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, to bring favor.
Yeah.
So notice the kind of things that's on his mind. That there's a talk of justice.
Yeah.
Right there in that opening statement of Jesus, his Magna Carta, that would charter his ministry, he already lays out, I am a man of justice.
Right.
He was concerned about justice. I'll come to that. When I come to the figure of Jesus, I will come to that. Right now, I just want to talk a little bit more about this woman, because I feel like the more I talk about this woman, the more I connect with the woman out there. Or it could be a man.
Yeah.
It could be a man out there who is crying out for justice, and you're wondering if the church would ever come alongside you and cry out for justice.
But yeah, that's really interesting, because I sense that there are a lot of persons that identify with this widow in need of justice, wondering like who's gonna be my advocate.
Good word. Stay there. Advocate. Because a lot of times, the people who are crying out for justice have been disempowered.
Right.
Are marginalized.
Right.
They don't have the power. I like that word.
Yeah.
And what they need is an advocate. Lovely word. An advocate to come alongside them. So what Jesus does wonderfully in this parable is that he basically says, this woman has no advocate. So ask me how he says it. Ask me. How does he do that? How does he set it?
How does he do that? How does he?
He made sure that he said, I mean, he's so good with words.
Right.
One word he uses to send that across. He says, a widow.
Ooh.
A widow. So normally in patristic or patriarchal society, male-dominated, macho-dominated society, it is usually the men who will go out and speak in the fora, or the forum, plural forum, for justice and for other causes. It's usually the woman kept silent, the woman kept silent.
Right.
But here you have a situation where the woman is the one speaking out. So as you do the exegesis, you have to ask yourself, why is it in a patristic, patriarchal society, male-dominated society, where women are supposed to keep silent, why is it that there's a woman who is speaking out, advocating? Because Jesus wanted to make it clear nobody's standing up for this woman. And he wanted to make it abundantly clear she doesn't even have a man. She doesn't even have a man.
But she's a widow, right?
She's a widow. So she is the one balling. And this is symbolic, by the way. To my fellow Vincentians and others are listening. This is symbolic of the people, the vagrants, or people who get moved around and by authoritarian figures, and you go there, and by people who are slighted by the system because they might not have the education. It's not that they don't have a husband, but that not having a husband is more than that. You do the exegesis. It is not having anyone. I think that's the deeper meaning of what
they are alone.
You might not have your education because sometimes your education is your strength. You might not have income because some who have income power. You might not have good friends and connection because some who have that have people power. You might not have the charisma. So you have the charisma power. So you might be on your own with nothing going for you. And you're like, nobody fighting for me.
Right.
And that's a masterful story.
Wow.
Am I connected with somebody, you think?
Well, I'm right here and just entering into empathizing with what the widow and even some of those what she represents in our society. For her to be alone, and of course for those out there who may even be widows, you may be childless, because in a lot of sense, our society looks fairly upon persons who bear children. You may have a job, or you may have a job of great esteem. You may not have that job, and so
Or the job may have been taken
from you. So you feel powerless. You don't have money. You feel powerless. You don't have groceries in the kitchen cupboards.
And you feel like they ain't gonna listen to me because I'm a nobody. That's it, right? I'm a nobody. Yeah? I don't have anybody speaking up for me. Who is it in St. Vincent that identifies with this widow? That's a question that we have to ask. Who is it feels like my voice is not being heard? They don't care about me. Because this woman was beating down the man's door.
Right.
She was beating down the door, verse 4 says, for a while. I get the impression it was for a long while. But because she was alone, and sometimes we take advantage of people who are alone. Young girls who come into your office,
right.
All right, looking for a job.
Right.
They're alone and you do things to them and you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't have a voice. They don't have a voice to speak up for them.
Right.
Or people who maid, domestic, walking at your house and you try to pass your place with her.
Right.
And she won't do favors for you.
Right.
And then she gets fired. But
wow.
You have your lawyer friend on them.
Wow.
You have your lawyer friend.
Yeah. You have network. They have
who she has.
Yeah.
All right. And it's not just a matter of economic dismissal that's unfair.
Yeah.
You're talking about the way there's partiality in school, how people get promoted and how some get ignored,
right.
How some get recompense and others don't get recompense. And it's just a wide array of things that I have become aware that there are some people who are voiceless. Not that wrong hasn't been done to them.
Yeah.
There are people who are voiceless, and I ask myself now, should that be of concern to the church?
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting question to elaborate on, because I mean, coming from a background of which I have come from poverty, a single mother, I don't have a wealthy network who I can tap into. So there's the desperation like that widow, there's the loneliness like that widow, there's the poverty in many avenues, not just financially, but you don't have poverty of friends who you can lean on. So I really do. Who stands up for people like that?
Should the church?
Well,
should the church enter into the fray? Should the church advocate? And these are the things that concern me.
Yeah,
these things concern me. Why does Jesus tell this parable? You know, one of the accusations that is leveled against the church here in St. Vincent?
Go ahead, Chair. Well, I guess one of the many.
Is that church is concerned about there's members coming and doing income and tithes and offering.
The money.
But the churches don't speak out against, in other words, what they say, people say the church is not a voice. The church is not a voice for the oppressed. The question is, should that be within the purview of churches? Isn't that a diversion? I'm answering facetiously, of course. If the church was to delve into fighting for people like this widow.
Right.
By the way, we can't cover everything on this podcast. I realize we can't cover everything on this podcast.
Because I mean,
we're gonna have to come
just
back
this idea of the widow is profound, right? Because she kind of represents a vast amount of persons in our society.
She represents a lot of Vincentians
Yeah.
who don't have a voice or don't have anybody fighting up.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have a case, but who can we go to? Who will
Yeah.
hear us? Who will speak for us?
Yeah.
And then brings me back, I circle back to the question, what about the church? Well, as the church hears people say, you're not speaking up for us, you're not speaking. The big question that arises is, should we? Doesn't that, one might ask, I'm asking, like being provocative,
Right.
one might ask, boy, if the church were to take up matters of, let us say, an unfair dismissal or a matter of where there is inequity,
Right.
or a gender issue,
Right.
an issue where there is a power play, where somebody in power takes advantage of someone who doesn't have the power. Should the church, or victimization or anything like that, should the church even take time to speak on these?
Right.
And some might want to argue, boy, the church is there to propagate the gospel, the charisma, the good news, the evangel.
Right.
The church should be doing that. Let the church talk about save and loss and all of that. I think I heard somebody say the church should concern itself with church matters. So,
Wow.
if the church, now watch me, if the church takes up any of these matters for justice, are we stepping out of
Church
our
matters.
bounds? Yeah, that's what we say now. We out of bounds. In other words, run in your lane.
Right.
Is it that the church is running? People out there, listen. Is the church running outside of its lanes if it deals with these matters? I know the answer. You think I know the answer?
Well, based on your wealth of knowledge.
No. Based on what I see here, if Jesus... You want to hear the answer?
I definitely want to hear the answer.
If,
That I'm leaning forward.
yeah, what about you out there? You want to hear the answer? If Jesus, they always say, pay attention to what a man says before he dies. It must be up there. He ain't wasting no time. If Jesus, as he approaches Jerusalem,
Right.
where he is going to die, he knows the agony, the passion, the pain. He knows he's going to be strung up, wrung up, and done up.
Right.
He's going to that on the cross. He's crown of thorns, everything excruciating. He's going to feel the forsakenness of God.
Right.
My God, my God. And he's going to feel all of that. And just before he enters into that, he says, let me tell you all the story about justice. It has to be that justice, as the young people do, justice is in his heart.
Yeah.
And if justice is in the heart of Jesus, right before he dies, that he could bring it up, boy, I believe that it is not a diversion. I believe that it should be in the heart of church people. That church people should bring up and advocate and argue for and speak about and fight for justice, just like Christ did.
Wow.
So that is for those out there who say, I wonder if the church concerned. My answer to that on this particular podcast is, if Jesus was concerned for justice, the church ought also to be concerned.
Because the church is the body of Christ.
Yes, sir. And you see what I just did there? I just teed up the next podcast. Because what I just did there, my fellow Vincentians and others, what I just did there is basically what I segued again from a woman's cry for justice, right in the book there, and then I made a broader application now to who in St. Vincent is crying out for justice,
right?
And then I stepped from that into the question of, should the church be crying out for justice, or is that a diversion? And I said that if Jesus was a man of justice, the church also ought to be a man of justice. So I'm going to tee it up right there for the next podcast, where I will show you that Jesus was a man of justice. And showing you that Jesus was a man of justice, I hope to authenticate and validate
Right.
are fighting up for justice and would raise their voice so that nobody bat you down and slap you down and say, run in your lane. Because you're going to be a Jesus man fighting up for justice just like Jesus.
Wow.
And that's why I will take time in the next podcast to show you how Jesus was fighting for justice from the get-go.
Wow. Thank you so much, Reverend Richards, Pastor Richards. Really, really profoundly subsumed. I like the cue.
Subsumed.
I like the cue. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard Pastor Richards. If you are looking forward to this next podcast, you want to go ahead and like, subscribe, smash the notification bell.
Wait. Subscribe.
Yes.
Like I can do, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to like. But forgive me, old school. I bet there are other people out there old school like, how do you subscribe? And why? How and why?
Right.
Because we want them to subscribe. But how are you?
Okay, so on our YouTube channel, there's a big button under the video, right down below there.
Right there.
Right down below there.
Is it in red?
I think it's in white or
Is
red.
it white?
Yeah.
Alright,
Yeah.
okay.
It could be in red, depending on your
Okay.
color of the screen.
So my viewers and our viewers,
Yeah.
they're seeing it right now.
Yes.
Subscribe.
Yes, subscribe. Just push that button, and then it would kind of explode. And there's a button next to it that you can push. That has a bell, and that bell.
So you don't have to enter any personal information?
No. Once you're on YouTube, you have an account with YouTube.
So if you subscribe, does it mean that you support the Evangelical Association? What if you don't support the Evangelical Association, but you still want to check out what they say? You could subscribe.
Yes, you can subscribe because ultimately, right, we want to be a thinking people. We want to be able to, if I'm not going to subscribe to something, I want to have a reason. And you can have a reason if you're not here.
What if you're not a Christian? Should you subscribe?
You should subscribe whether you're a Christian, not a Christian, you want to become a Christian, you consider yourself to have been a Christian and are not now. Wherever you are on that spectrum.
And we're not going to beg anybody for money if they subscribe?
No.
At all?
No.
So they're going to remain anonymous?
Totally anonymous.
Totally
anonymous.
All right. And if they subscribe, what do they get? Subscribing.
Well, you just heard this conversation we just had, right? And of course, this is, maybe if you've heard the first podcast, you've heard about his backstory, his background, his wealth of knowledge, the areas that he touches on. But most importantly, in this session, you've heard the widow, her story, and how she identifies, even in our context, a lot of persons, it may be you. Church, the response to that, as Pastor Richards just queued up. You're the one here.
So every time we put our, because I get the we're gonna be putting out.
We're gonna put out content. Yeah.
So people who subscribe can ask questions in the
ask questions.
Yeah, okay.
in the comment section.
In the comment section, you can ask questions, right?
Yeah.
And we might actually answer your question, but if you subscribe, when we answer your question, you will get notification.
A response.
But would they know? For example, subscribers get notified, right?
Right. Once you have clicked that notification bell, you get notified.
So I might be walking around with if I subscribe, I might be walking around with my phone in my hand.
Right.
And then I might have asked a question, right?
Right.
Boy, I want him to answer this. Boy, the day he answers it, boy. I mean, you walk around here, ping, ping. Your phone goes off. You're like, yeah, he's answering my question. That's what you get if you subscribe.
Yep.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, man. Definitely.
Awesome.
So again, as we would end this podcast, I want to remind you of our vision. The vision of this podcast is to reach pastors, church leaders, parishioners, and of course, we've been talking about people like the widow. You may consider yourself nobody. We want to reach you with topics that can edify and inform you and can help you to rise up from your situation. So this has been another AEC podcast. And again, Pastor Richards, thank you so much for for joining us.
My pleasure, and my pleasure to have you viewing this podcast from our Association of Evangelical Churches here in St. Vincent. The church does have a voice, and you're going to be hearing our voice via this medium and other media. You're going to be hearing from the church in St. Vincent, because we are alive and well. Thank you for being a part of our initial survey into this area.
Yeah. All right, guys. Grace and peace is gonna be our sign out language. That's one of Paul's.
Peace out.
So peace out.
Peace out.
Grace and peace, guys.